Every morning at exactly 6:40 a.m., before the city fully opened its tired eyes, Daniel Harper stood at the same corner outside the Maple Street subway station with a paper cup of black coffee in one hand and his 5-year-old daughter's tiny pink backpack in the other. The air was always crisp at that hour, heavy with the scent of roasted beans drifting from the cafe behind him and the faint hum of buses groaning awake. Daniel's life ran on routine. Wake up at 5, make Emma's oatmeal with sliced bananas, braid her messy curls as best as a single dad could, walk her to the station, then catch the 7:05 train to his construction job across town. Routine was the only thing holding his world together after his wife, Clara, passed away 3 years earlier. He had learned the hard way that when grief threatens to swallow you whole, structure becomes your lifeline. And that was how he first noticed her. The woman who sat on the cold stone bench near the station entrance every single morning, wrapped in a faded gray coat regardless of the weather, her dark hair loosely tied back, her eyes distant but observant. She never begged. She never spoke. She simply sat there with a small thermos at her feet and hands clasped tightly in her lap, as if holding onto the last thread of dignity she had left. Most people rushed past her like she was invisible. Daniel almost did too. The first time he stopped, it wasn't planned. Emma had tugged on his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, that lady looks cold." Daniel hesitated, glanced at his watch, then at the woman. Without overthinking it, he walked to the cafe, bought an extra coffee and a blueberry muffin, and placed them gently beside her. She looked up, startled, her brown eyes wide with surprise. "For you," he said simply. She nodded once, her voice barely audible. "Thank you." That was it. No conversation. No dramatic exchange. Just a quiet act of kindness on an ordinary morning. But the next day, he did it again. And the next. It became part of his routine, 2 coffees, 2 muffins. Emma would smile proudly every time they handed her the warm cup, as if they were performing a secret mission only they understood. Over time, the woman began to speak a little more. "You don't have to do this," she would murmur. Daniel would shrug. "I know." He never asked her name. She never offered it. There was something unspoken between them, a shared understanding that sometimes help didn't need questions attached to it. Weeks turned into months. Seasons shifted. In winter, Daniel brought her gloves and a thick scarf he claimed was extra, though it was brand new. In spring, he noticed she sat up straighter, her hair brushed neatly, her coat cleaner. Sometimes he'd catch her watching Emma laugh at pigeons, and for a fleeting second, a softness would pass over her face that looked suspiciously like longing. Daniel didn't pry. He had learned that everyone carries battles you can't see. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly remember, was that this woman had once carried him. 15 years earlier, on a storm-drenched highway outside the city, a 19-year-old Daniel had been reckless, speeding home after a fight with his father, rain blurring his vision, anger clouding his judgment. He never saw the truck that swerved into his lane. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. His car flipped, skidding across wet asphalt before slamming into a guardrail. When he came to, everything was upside down, blood in his eyes, legs trapped. Panic clawed at his throat. Then someone was there, a young woman, her own car pulled over hazardously behind the wreck. She had been driving home from nursing school, exhausted after a double shift. She didn't hesitate. She crawled through broken glass, ignoring the rain soaking her clothes, speaking calmly to him as she checked his pulse. "Stay with me," she had insisted, pressing fabric against his bleeding forehead. She kept him conscious until paramedics arrived. Later, in the hospital, Daniel drifted in and out of sedation. He vaguely remembered a face leaning over him, soft brown eyes filled with fierce determination. But trauma has a way of stealing details. By the time he fully recovered, the woman was gone. He never learned her name. Life moved forward. He married Clara. He became a father. He forgot. But she didn't. Her name was Lillian Moore. And saving Daniel that night had cost her more than he would ever know. As she waited for the ambulance, another speeding vehicle lost control on the slick road. It struck her parked car with brutal force, pushing it into her. The impact crushed her leg beyond repair. After multiple surgeries and mounting medical bills, she lost her scholarship. The dreams of becoming a trauma nurse slipped through her fingers. The compensation from insurance barely covered the basics. Her family struggled financially, and when her parents passed away years later, the burden deepened. Jobs became harder to keep with chronic pain. Eventually, after one cruel twist of fate after another, she found herself with nothing but a gray coat and a bench outside Maple Street Station, the same station Daniel now walked past every morning. The first time she saw him step out of the subway months ago, her heart nearly stopped. Older. Broader shoulders. Tired eyes. But unmistakably him. The boy she had dragged from twisted metal. She had rehearsed 100 ways to approach him. But when he walked toward her that first morning with coffee in hand, offering kindness without recognition, something inside her shifted. She decided to wait. To see if life would circle back on its own. And so she accepted his help silently, watching the man he had become. A devoted father. A gentle soul. A man who had turned his second chance at life into something meaningful. Every morning, when Emma hugged her goodbye before school, because the two had become routine, Lillian felt warmth she thought she had lost forever. Then came the morning everything changed. It was early autumn. The air carried that golden chill that hints at coming change. Daniel approached with the usual coffees, but his expression was distracted, heavier than usual. Emma was homesick with a fever, and he had barely slept. As he handed Lillian the cup, she noticed his hands trembling slightly. "You look tired," she said softly. He gave a hollow chuckle. "Comes with the job description." She hesitated, her heart pounding. She had planned to wait longer. Maybe until she found stable housing again, maybe until she looked less fragile. But watching him now, she realized something. He still carried guilt. It lingered in the way he spoke about second chances, in the way he sometimes stared into nothingness as if remembering something he couldn't fully grasp. "Daniel," she said gently. He froze. He had never told her his name. Slowly, he looked at her. "How do you know my name?" She swallowed, tears gathering but not falling. For 15 years she had carried the memory of his blood on her hands, the weight of his unconscious body, the sound of sirens cutting through rain. She had imagined this moment countless times, yet now the words felt impossibly heavy. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't remember me." The world seemed to tilt. Daniel searched her face, confusion etched deep. And then, like lightning splitting the sky, a fragment surfaced. Rain. Shattered glass. Brown eyes telling him to stay awake. His breath hitched. "The accident," he murmured. She nodded once. Silence stretched between them, thick with realization. Daniel staggered back slightly, one hand gripping the bench for support. "That was you." His voice cracked. She didn't speak, just rolled up her pant leg slightly, revealing the faint, jagged scar tracing down her calf, a permanent reminder. The color drained from his face. "I tried to find you," he whispered, though even as he said it, he knew it wasn't entirely true. He had thought about it, yes. But life had been easier to move forward without reopening that night. "You saved my life," he breathed. A sad smile touched her lips. "Looks like you saved mine too." He didn't understand until she gestured to the coffee, the gloves, the countless mornings of quiet compassion. In that instant, Daniel felt something shift inside him. A collision of gratitude, guilt, and awe. The woman he had been helping out of simple kindness had once sacrificed everything to pull him from death's grip. And she had never asked for recognition. Never demanded repayment. He sank onto the bench beside her, overwhelmed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her answer was simple. "I wanted to see who you became." Tears blurred his vision. For years he had wondered why he survived that crash when others didn't. Now he knew. It wasn't random. It was her. The next weeks moved like a whirlwind. Daniel refused to let her remain on that bench another day. He connected her with a rehabilitation specialist through a friend. He helped her secure stable housing. More importantly, he listened. Really listened. Emma adored her, insisting on calling her Aunt Lily. And as Lillian slowly rebuilt her life, Daniel realized something profound. Kindness is never wasted. It circles back in ways you can't predict. The men she had saved had grown into someone who would unknowingly save her in return. Their story wasn't about debt or repayment. It was about grace. About how one selfless act on a rainy highway could echo across 15 years and come back wrapped in warm coffee and a blueberry muffin. So if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the smallest gesture can change a life, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because here, we believe in stories that restore faith in humanity. Stories that prove kindness is powerful. Stories that remind you that what you give to the world always finds its way back. And sometimes, all it takes is a whisper, "You don't remember me."